The story of Joseph, the savior in scarcity.
Once upon a time, in a lush valley surrounded by rolling hills,
There was a small, vibrant community
the people were hard-working farmers, craftsmen.
and traders who thrived on the land's abundance.
Life was good, and there always seemed to be enough for everyone. But as with many blessings, the villagers grew complacent.
Enjoying the moment and rarely thinking about what lay ahead.
Among them was a young man named Joseph,
He was neither the richest nor the most influential in the village.
but he possessed something rare, a keen mind and an observant nature.
Joseph often took long walks through the fields and forests.
Marveling at the intricate balance of nature,
One day, while resting near an anthill, he noticed the tiny creatures bustling about.
carrying food and storing it deep within their colony. Intrigued, Joseph returned day after day to observe them,
He realized that the ants worked tirelessly during the harvest season.
preparing for the barren months ahead. If these small creatures can prepare for the future, why can't we?
He thought. Joseph decided to test the principle of saving in his own life. He worked as a farmer, tending to his crops and livestock. Each harvest, he set aside a portion of his grain, fruits, and other produce,
He built strong silos and storage pits.
ensuring that his food was safe from pests and spoilage.
In addition, he saved a part of his income,
Refraining from spending on unnecessary luxuries,
his actions did not go unnoticed.
many villagers laughed at him, calling him overly cautious.
Why deny yourself enjoyment today for a tomorrow that may never come? They teased, but Joseph smiled and replied, the future is uncertain.
But preparation never goes to waste.
Years passed.
And Joseph's barns grew fuller while others spent their harvests quickly,
Life in the village continued peacefully,
with people living from one season to the next,
unaware of the storm that was brewing. One year, the rains failed.
At first,
The villagers were unconcerned, assuming it was a temporary setback. But as weeks turned into months and the dry season extended far beyond its usual time,
the reality of a drought began to sink in. Crops withered under the relentless sun, rivers and wells dried up, and food became scarce. Panic set in.
families who once feasted on the land's bounty now struggled to find even a morsel of food,
The village descended into despair.
and people began to turn on one another in their desperation.
But in the midst of the chaos, Joseph's barns stood tall, filled with grain and provisions.
Quietly, he began to help his neighbors,
Word quickly spread, and soon, people from all over the village came to Joseph.
hoping for a share of his stored food.
Joseph welcomed them with compassion, but also with wisdom.
He knew that simply handing out food without a plan would lead to waste and inequality,
He devised a fair system.
asking those who still had resources to exchange goods or services for food.
Farmers who had tools but no food helped repair his equipment. Craftsmen offered their skills in exchange for grain. For those who had nothing, Joseph was generous,
Giving freely to ensure no one went hungry.
We are a community, he reminded them.
When one suffers, we all suffer.
But if we work together, we can survive this. As the drought persisted, Joseph became a beacon of hope. He didn't just feed people.
He taught them the value of preparation and foresight,
He organized lessons showing them how to save and store food.
how to conserve water, and how to work together to face challenges. Months later, the rains finally returned.
The fields turned green once more, and life began to recover. But the village was forever changed. The people no longer took abundance for granted.
Inspired by Joseph's example, they began to adopt his practices of saving and planning.
Joseph, who had once been mocked for his cautious ways,
Was now celebrated as the savior of the village. His name became a symbol of wisdom and leadership, and his story was passed down from one generation to the next.
The villagers built a monument in his honor, inscribing it with his most famous words: "In times of plenty, prepare for scarcity."
For wisdom and generosity will carry you through the hardest days.
From that day on, the community thrived not just on the land's abundance, but on the lessons Joseph had taught them.
His legacy lived on, a reminder that one person's wisdom and preparation can uplift an entire community.
Turning adversity into an opportunity for growth and unity.